Welcome back to the podcast. This is another spooky season edition of the podcast, and I'm reluctantly bringing back the very talented Alim back to the podcast. Now, I'll tell you reluctantly in a minute, but Alim, why don't you tell the fans who you are and what you do? I had him actually on a few weeks ago doing his Kickstarter Sweet Pea. So, Alim, tell the new fans a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So at the time of this, the Kickstarter will be over, hopefully successfully. We're getting close to it, but there's only a few days left, so we'll see how that goes. Um, so, as he said, my name is Alim Leggett. I'm an independent comic book creator, a writer, and then an artist as well. And I have one series called The Diary of Sweet Pea, which is 2 issues in now in its introductory phase, and it's been an amazing experience so far.
And I liked Sweet Pea. I hope it does get funded. It was a really cool comic book. Now, when we started this, Alim, I said reluctantly, because one of the mandates for the podcast, when I bring guests on, I let them pick the topic. I don't give you guys the topic. I figured if you're excited about the comic book and you want to talk about that enthusiasm, is going to filter around to fans are going to want to rush out and get that. The other mandate I don't the other mandate, which you broke, which I'm lucky, you're lucky you're on the show today, Alim. Let's just be that. The other mandate is I don't normally cover current comic books, but Alim decided he wanted to talk about DC Ghouls. DC's Ghouls Just Want to Have Fun. Now, he went off and paid $10 for the 80-page edition. First off, Alim, was that worth $10 to you?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now,
$10 for 80 pages, you can't beat that.
Now, I am luckier, kind of, sort of, because I have the DC Universe Infinite app. And every so often, they will drop brand new stuff onto the app as a freebie. So I actually got that on the app today. So I've actually been reading it too. If you don't get the DC Universe app, people, it's kind of a cool deal because whatever comic books that come out on the shops today, they're on the platform within the next month. So you've only got a month leeway, and they got thousands of comic books there. They got the wonkiest search engine on the face of the earth. It's really hard to find stuff, but we won't go onto that tangent. But Alim, you singled out one particular story because of a particular creator. What was that?
The Spoils, written by Greg Burnham.
Excuse my stupidity, but I'm an old-time comic book fan, and there are like so many creators that I don't even know who they are half the time. And a lot of times I will actually go and research a person and reach out to them and say, hey, you want to be on the podcast? And they'll say yes, only to go back and go, oh my gosh, it's that person. So what about this creative person snagged your interest that you had to buy the book?
Well, he's Greg is one of the creators that's working on the Milestone Initiative, and I actually had the pleasure of meeting him at this place called a convention called DreamCon out in Texas this year, and he's just a great guy. And being able to have met somebody that actually coached me and as a fellow writer a little bit, just endeared his work to me. So whenever I see him, I try to support him as much as possible. And he does great work.
So what story was that? Which one
The
in the thing?
Spoils. The Spoils is the Superman story in the anthology.
Okay, got you. I know you just poor Alim. We put this. We're actually taping this at the beginning of October, and we're gonna run it during the spooky season. So he just went off to the store and ran it. We got it today. He hasn't even really read the whole thing. But maybe you can flip through it now. But I was flipping through it, and it looked like the characters to me in the stories kind of like gelled together. It was like almost like the Superman, the Nightwing were actually Nightwing and Superman story that had a supernatural flair versus let's make a supernatural spooky story and throw these characters in it. I mean, I was looking at the Nightwing, I'm going, you know what? The Nightwing actually looks like a Nightwing story with a little bit of supernatural twist. What do you think, Alim?
Absolutely. So, like I said, the Spoils is the only one that I've gotten to read. It's an anthology book, so each story is only a couple of pages long, and it definitely captured Superman and Lois Lane are both featured inside of the story, and it did a really good job of capturing them in a way that you will recognize the characters. You know what I mean? Like how you just said, it's not just a ghost story
But
that
a
happens
fill-in,
to have
like
Superman.
a fill-in story with just Superman in it. It's actually Superman and Lois as they are today. Like,
Hmm.
yeah. Um, so you liked the story, didn't you?
Yeah, yeah, I love the story. And now that I'm like writing professionally comic books, so my lens is a little bit different when I view these things. Um, I'm not just consuming it for the entertainment anymore. I'm learning as I go, and the page turns while there. For it to have been such a short story, it was very complete, very well done. The characters were presented well, and it was great.
I did not get to that Superman story. Did they have a guest star from the supernatural side of DC's universe as a guest star in that one? Or was it just Superman?
No, it was just Superman there, and I think he was a poltergeist story where he was trying to deal with like a haunted prison.
You know, I because I also got it today on my app, and I was looking at it has a really cool selection of characters on it. You've got the Question, Green Lantern, Animal Man, Animal Girl, Nightwing, Superman, Robot Man, Man Bat, and there's a Crush and Logo story also in there. One of the ones I thought was kind of cool. There was a Green Lantern story called The Shadow over Coast City, where he teams up with the demon um, to save the city. And I just thought taking the supernatural demon Etrigan and the sci-fi Green Lantern and kind of mixing them together was kind of a cool concept that works. I thought it was really cool. Um, and the other one that I liked was the Doom Patrol one, because it's kind of makes a fun of DC's past, but not at the same time. The story revolves around Robot Man, and they go to this town that celebrates the death of the Doom Patrol because back in the 60s, they killed off the Doom Patrol. And
Yeah.
then they came back, okay, obviously, because everything comes back. And the Robot Man has survivor's guilt because some of the townspeople that were involved in this incident didn't make it through when the Doom Patrol did. So it's like,
Mm.
and it has a Doom. If you're a Doom Patrol person, it feels like a Doom Patrol story. And it's John Constantine in the back for some reason, because I didn't read the whole story. And the Nightwing story has a guest star of Jason Todd, and the art and everything. I'm like, wow, this reads just like a Jason. I'm sorry, it was just like a Jason Todd and Nightwing story. It's a cool, nice book that you can actually almost anybody can read. Wouldn't you consider it an all ages book?
Yeah, they
I mean, I only
definitely
read
have.
the first story, but it's like it
No,
feels
but I
like
mean,
an all ages.
what I read was absolutely for all ages. Like a spooky stories to tell in the dark kind of thing, where they got
Yes,
like there's an anthology where you have. And I think what helps them here is that they have different writers, different teams on every short story,
yes.
so that team gets to focus in on those pages and really capturing those characters. And then once you turn to the next one, it's all fresh and new. It's
And
like stories are bite sized. You can sit down while you're
yes,
on your 15-minute break or having a coffee or something, read a quick story, and come back later for the rest.
yep. And each story, because we said this, it's uniquely drawn and written to match the character, and it has that atmosphere. So it's just not all these generic spooky stories. I'm sure when you were reading Superman, you go, I'm in Metropolis with Lois Lane and Clark Kent and Superman. It just felt like that. Just like, the one I was reading just a few minutes ago before we got online was the one with the um Nightwing. I'm like, this feels like Nightwing, and I could be reading a Batman detective comic book as a backup in this because it fits in there. It was such a nicely well-rounded, well done comic book. Do you get into these spooky anthologies when they come out? Because DC puts them out about every year, or is this just something that you did on the whim?
No, this was my first time, but I will be looking into more anthologies because I enjoy studying different writing styles. So this is a good way for me to get, short stories where, they have these constraints inside of the story. So like what Greg did was within like the first page, I had an idea just through the dialogue about what the story was going to be about. Then they just delivered on the promises and got through to it, which is something that, you know, I know how to do, but I would like to get better at, and that's the best way to do it, I think, by, you know, reading other people's work.
Another thing that this analogy would be good for is the person that's not a big comic book fan and give it to
Yeah.
them for their Halloween. Here's a good sampler of why I read comic books. Now you're not going to get A+ stories out of all these things. And in 80 pages, none of them are all just not, they're not going to all shine, but they're all pretty good because I looked at most of them. I like the Man Bat because he's also in there, but it's a really good, well-rounded, done in one, worth the $9, $10 you paid for. It's about 80 pages. Before we wrap this up, because we do have a short form podcast going on, you also get the final words. So you go at it, Alim. What do you got to say before we wrap this up today?
Well, I'll just bring it back to my own work that I'm doing. And Sweet Pea is the story of a young girl in Philadelphia who has to survive an alien invasion with the help of her father. And by the second issue, there's some horror elements that popped up in there that kind of surprised me a little bit, even as the writer. So I think it's definitely going to be worth the book will definitely be released by the time that this comes out, available digitally at least. So you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok under Sweet Pea Comic. I'll probably have a webpage coming up soon, but for now, just look for me there, and you know we can talk about getting you an issue.
Again, Alim with Sweet Pea. Thanks for joining me for the spooky edition. We'll have you on again for something fun. Thanks for joining me on the podcast.
All right, have a good one.